Since we've had, the events of 2020 onwards, we have seen a huge amount of extra rules and compliance, and we're seeing a move away from individual business owners to more and more being handled through companies and infrastructures and agents associated with those companies. So everything can be outsourced and back regulated into the arena of what is very personal expression of skills and gifts and talents.
Yeah, I noticed it's almost AI is taking over our workplaces, our jobs, the business world. Like social media is pushing us out in our visibility, our expression, and it's getting harder and harder in a way to bring our work in the world. Like it almost feels like we are fighting for claiming our space. Like our doing business feels like fight. What do you think about that? Like, what can we do about it?
We certainly have a few extra players in the arena. AI is now doing a lot of the jobs, and suddenly there's a shock for a lot of people where they realize that business owners or companies or outfits are just swapping to programs to do the jobs instead, and the work dries up. And this is affecting all industries, including creativity. What can we do about it? Well, there will never be a shortage of need for genuine talent done by a human, because AI can only go so far. However, we do face a situation where there is a genuine shortage sometimes of people who are intelligent enough to realize the fact that we need humans as well as AI. And that is where part of the challenge lies, because you have to pick more carefully now who you work with, why you do it, and how you do it. And even if you are not into quite a lot of the stuff that's out there in the commercial world, you need to exercise all of your business activities and the use of your talents and your creativity in sometimes just as much scrutinized ways as even all the legal and the social media rules and all of that we find in the world, because you need to be able to hold your own ability in exactly the way that you really, really want to, and be able to execute it in a way that you choose rather than what others demand of you, of course, in addition to the law. And that really is a challenge. We are being forced to stand up more for the way that we want to do things. And we are being forced sometimes to say no and to question what other people are saying and doing, to make sure that there is not this increased creep of all sorts of things that apparently we should be doing, but nobody knows why, and actually isn't really that legal.
So why things are so harder and so more oppressive, and it seems like we have more and more challenges day to day to deal with that we didn't have before?
Well, the interesting thing about it is that actually the planet is changing. Okay. And we're changing. And you come across so many people who think, well, it's just because the world's getting darker and it's always been this way. It's the opposite. The world is getting lighter. And because of that, we are starting to open up and want to express more of ourselves. And then in reaction, those who exercise maybe a more negative type of power are then ramping up their controls and their ways of regulating to try and commandeer and take the actual innovation and the creativity and make more profit out of it. And what we're seeing really is a questioning of where the boundary lies between us as individuals wanting to offer our own gifts and talents and other people taking it over, repackaging it, and then making money out of a hybrid or even an automated version of what is thoroughly human and regulated, in fact, by nature.
Oh, you're touching such a, chord in me about this, because I feel like a lot of us want to bring that sacred work. Let's call it sacred work we here to bring. Like a lot of us getting clarity the vision we have, what we want to bring, how we want to bring it. But then there's this, how do we balance this, what you're sharing, and how do we balance this of need to make money and to function in this world what you just shared, that is more and more controlling and making harder for us to do that.
Well, actually, you're asking really, how to be an individual in alignment and in integrity while still obeying the rules that need to be obeyed in the human world. And the way you do that is that, first of all, you must answer to yourself and where all of your gifts and talents come from. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a religious or even a spiritual question. It's very thoroughly practical. You have a reference system in your own body of how you feel when you want to do things and when you feel that something's going on that doesn't really sit well with you, when you collaborate and offer what you have, whether money's involved or not, in fact. And first of all, you've got to make sure that you're clear on your boundaries and also where the law and different regulations lie, that you can spot where you're going into agreements that you're not happy with, that you have strategies then for dealing with that and communicating about it before different things start to unfold that maybe many parties might not be happy with, including yourself. And you've also got to get that balance correct between how much time and space you have for offering what you're here to do and how much time and space you have for uploading it all onto the platforms, making your social media shorts and all the other things that you may or may not choose to do, which some of us tend to think of are the additional tasks rather than the central tasks.
For sure. So let's talk about these collaborations that you touched, because I truly get it that at the core of success is togetherness, and what you share, like your success is bonds and affection. And I got real experience that in a deep way through building my own business. But I also experiencing that, and I will say it boldly, it's getting harder and harder to collaborate, to be in togetherness in all sorts of ways. It's getting more extreme.
Yeah, I mean, people just can't cooperate anymore. And one of the things that we see happening a lot is because people feel disempowered by what's going on in the world and unfair legislation and rules that are always exerted in ways that are only true for some and not everyone. People then use their interpersonal arenas, particularly in business relationships, to then play out that powerlessness and try to be powerful and put the world to rights. So what normally in the past has been a lot more of a frictionless experience where you just talk and you agree and you get on with things. And yes, you will sign a few documents, but that bit is not such a big deal. It's really moved to a very different arena now where people are almost trying to contest and argue about every single point. It takes longer to even get an agreement before you can start work. And you can be talking about the agreement all the way through the work after the work is completed. And in the worst cases, even with a lawyer, many steps down the line because it never worked out or one point is not satisfactory to everybody. And it's almost like this other world is starting to take over the very natural and usually problem-free exchange between people where you get excited about what you want to do and talk about how you're going to do it.
Yeah, and to add on that, I also experienced like extremes in people evolution or patterns or like how they affected that disempowerment that you share. And I want your take on like, how do you experience on like different ways? Like for me, it's very hard to deal with what I call sometimes zombies people. And you don't know who is who, what is what anymore, like what is real. And there are so many additional things that I have to encounter with people, like all sorts. Would I get the consultant support? Would I have a client? Would I have a team member? How do you deal with that?
Well, sometimes you feel like you need a PhD in psychology.
Indeed.
But in truth, you can't waste too much time on it because otherwise you don't get any work done. And this is why I mentioned earlier that increasingly, even if you are attempting to exercise a really, really integrity-based professional practice, you do tend to resort more and more to a written set of agreements that you go through before you start. So everything is as crystal crystal clear and as transparent as possible. And for myself, I have found that you really need to make sure that others are clear about where you stand and what you want in certain detailed areas. And that can be quite frightening because you get a bit afraid that people won't want to work with you if you really spell it out and they think, oh, you know, what have we got here? This person's a little bit heavy. Or you even get, you know, the more extreme accusations like, oh, you know, they're into all the dark stuff. They're into all of that, you know, really heavy stuff. This is the way that they act. But actually, detail is very important for our collaborations because people are just under stress. People get emotional because their lives are emotional, and then it spills over into the work arena. And firm boundaries and clear discussions about what you'll do if there's a problem, because you can't really know sometimes what the problems are going to be either, because it involves outside things as well as whatever's going on with the people involved. Crystal clear agreements about how you'll deal with things if problems come up is quite important.
Right. So how do we try to avoid this human drama, all the distractions that we have in the world, all what you say,
you can't avoid it. It's impossible. And actually human drama and sometimes even creative conflict is extremely healthy, and you want it, not from a negative perspective, but if you understand me, you need a little bit of disagreement. You need that to and fro. There needs to be some passion in what you're doing. And if there isn't, you're just going to get another bland, sterile outcome, which we all know about, never gets any views on social media. People can't be bothered with it because they can't feel any pulse. And then we're back to your zombies again. And you just don't want to interact and don't feel any inclination to stay very long with anything that you have come across that you might want to partake in.